right now. All righty, we should be live. The button is red, which means it's live, so that's good enough for me. Hope y'all doing okay out there in the interwebs. We're chilling with Wrangler. RH Snow just arrived, and we're gonna just be talking about whatever. We have no plan, general conversation right now, so we're gonna wing it. So Wrangler, you're pretty used to winging it. How are you doing, man?
Winging.
All right, just got home from work. It's a toasty one here today, but yeah, I was able to get here just in time. So here I am, ready to talk about who knows what. I still don't know what. How you doing, all right, Snow?
We just busted my water main.
What?
We just busted it. Okay, so we're trying to hook up. We're doing a very, very professional job of getting my water hooked up to the main line, which, like, I'm in the middle of Texas, so we can do things. And so we had the water line, and we're hooking up so we can be cool and everything and have water now, because basically I've been camping out in the Wonder Bunker for like a year, basically, hanging out. No, I've just been camping. I have no water. I have a Berkey that's full of water. I have, like air conditioner, things like that. But it's sort of like fancy camping because we didn't have the water set up. I'm fine because I know how to set up with that. But I was real excited because we were getting it done today. And as it turns out, whilst digging with a sharpshooter, which if any of y'all know what a sharpshooter shovel is, y'all know what that is?
I don't.
Not sure, no.
It's a heavy, sharp, like a straight sort of blade on a shovel. And if you throw it down really hard, it will probably break something. And so they were digging, but it also makes a nice
I have used those. I just didn't know they were called sharpshooters.
Yeah, that's how we call them, sharpshooters. And so chunked it down in there and came to find out that, and my wonderful people, because my friends, they're helping us out, and we have, wonderful veterans like CVs and stuff that are working, so they know what they're doing. But it sort of bounced a little probably or something, and sort of busted the main, and now they're fixing it. And any minute now, we'll find out. We'll find out when somebody turns on the water and it either makes a geyser or not.
Oh boy!
Yeah, so
then you got to go around and bleed all the faucets,
dude. Yeah. So they're gonna have to do that. I'm still not hooked up yet, but at least I have air conditioning in my house. So I'm okay with that. I can actually live without water. I can put a thing where I actually put, like, no, for real. If I have the 5-gallon Berkey, I have the giantest Berkey water filter ever, and I spent money on that puppy because I'm like a prepper sort of person kind of, and so I have my Berkey and I'm like, fine, I don't need anything, because I can make coffee, I can do stuff. I go next door to take my showers and things like that. But dude, it was sort of come on there for a minute there, because the thing is, my neighbors, otherwise known as my son and my daughter-in-law, have a thing. It's called a baby, and it just got born. And there's nothing as awesome as going without water while your baby is just born. So we're all off the same main. So I'm like, dude,
congratulations on the grandkid.
I know, I'm so excited. He was in NICU for about a week, and was so cute. But yeah, he had to go to NICU, and it was like a big deal and everything. So everybody's so excited he's home, but like everything has to be perfect. So we were doing this job while they were gone, so it'd be like all awesome and everything. So like, hurry. It's like they're coming back. There won't be any water. You can just imagine how excited they will be to find out there's no water, because Dad did something special with his out in the yard. Because no guts, no glory, y'all. But it doesn't feel the same when you can't flush the toilet. And so,
but sometimes with those guts still comes a lack of glory. But
that's right.
You go through those lack of glories to get to the one that does yield glory.
Yeah. So we're waiting to see if the glue dries properly, and if it does, that'll be an awesome day. So,
you know what taught me that principle of life?
What?
Mario.
Really? Do you want to tell the story?
Finally, I've beaten it. I'm sorry, but our princess is in another castle. Well, I'm gonna smack you.
Oh, dude. Okay, some of the most epic gaming that I ever did, actually, because y'all are babies, y'all are like, older than maybe my toe or something. You have no age on you. You're fresh, and so you barely remember the glory that was, getting a Nintendo 64 and actually being able to plug it in and play it. I actually skipped from school. Meaning I was a teacher. No, I was a teacher. and I skipped school so I could play this thing.
Wow.
After I
Honey.
no, I was yes, I came from a gaming family. We gamed like ever since Pong, and I've been there. The whole ride.
On the Odyssey?
No, it's amazing to think that I started off with Atari Pong, back in the glory days.
Oh,
where we actually
Atari, not Odyssey.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, see, Commodore with Zork and all that kind of stuff. And so I had those systems. So getting to the big time, getting your own, like Nintendo to put on your TV was a big deal. And I think it was like 1987, maybe, I don't know. I got my own, and because right after my daughter was born, and of course it came out before then. And we played with my parents. I actually played with my mom and dad. And they played all the levels. They knew all the glitches. They knew all of the secrets of Mario. Like old dude. He's like in the 70s. My mom's in her late 60s at the time. They were playing Mario like crazy.
That's awesome.
And actually, they used it to get over his stroke. It actually helped him because of using hand-eye coordination and memorizing all the combos. He got over stroke with it. So, dude, they were like serious Mario people. They were serious. When they finally beat the game, and I mean, I'm talking about where they go through and you start over the alphabets again and it doubles up and you're on all the high toolies of the numbers and stuff and it keeps getting faster. They went all the way through without warping, without doing anything. It was amazing. And so, yeah, I actually ended up, when I got my own, I was excited because I had it at my house. And I skipped school that day. I called in. The only time I actually said, I feel like I need to stay home. I did not lie. I did not lie. And I did not take days off very often, but I was like, dude, it was so fascinating to do when you look at the actual old code, exploring side-scrolling games, exploring what it took to get you from point A to point B, and the glee of having something like that in front of you for the first time was so totally fresh. It was just awesome. And I did go to work the next day. I did. And I made sure I stayed days. Go ahead.
Did you ever have the ColecoVision?
You know what? I'm thinking we did, but I cannot begin to tell you. I know I've had a clone of it.
Then it had the thing that slid into the front, the Atari adapter, so you could play Atari 2600 games on that one.
Oh yeah.
But I'll tell you what, Atari was cool, but those joysticks.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the ColecoVision had their own kind of controllers. It was a number pad with a knob at the top, and you would place your right palm on the knob and use that as the stick to move around, and the buttons were on the side. You click it with your left thumb.
Oh,
that was a little bit better for some games than the Atari joystick. But when Nintendo came out with the D-pad, I mean, that was just it right there. I still like the D-pad better than thumbsticks.
Actually, I was okay with the Atari joystick, but that's because I had grown accustomed to playing on, the big consoles at the pizza places and things like that. And they were almost all joystick with a little bit of a thumb pad thing.
That is a little bit different though, because the joystick is fastened to the cabinet versus you're holding it in your hand. So it does change things up.
You had to clamp it between your legs, literally. I would actually take it and put it between my knees and push it that way, and butt my knees up against the coffee table because we had a coffee table. So I did that where I put it right like that, and that would held in place that way. And that's how I got to play with it, because you're right. You couldn't really, you would hold it with one hand and joystick with the other usually. But then it made it hard to do other stuff, and you had to sort of like clamp it to yourself. So I put it between my knees and did it. It was sort of like a flight pad. It was fun. I really loved early gaming. I would love to go back and actually revisit that.
You ever play Circus Atari?
No.
That sounds familiar. I know my first real console to play, well, that's probably the Super Genesis. But I remember next to nothing about it because I was so early on in my life. But the one that I sort of like stuck was the Nintendo 64 with their weird Trident controller. I remember some years ago, I went and picked up like a USB Trident controller, to give it a try, old nostalgia vibes. And let me tell you, I see why we steered away from that. That felt very awkward to handle these many years later, like continuously changing.
Bird. Yeah, it's. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Yeah,
it's the mind map. When you're talking about making mind maps, when we're young, we have a tendency to make them a little faster. And so you hand a child something like any kind of gamepad or a keyboard or whatever, and they'll learn it pretty quickly. We get so ingrained with it that it's hard for us to switch. And so what felt fine to you before, because you know, it was all brand new to you, now you're used to Bethesda games or whatever, you're used to the Xbox pad. And I've gotten to where I've gotten sort of honed in on the PS3 because that's what I've played the last 10 years. And now that it died this horrible death, and I cannot, I want another PS3 so bad because I've got all my stuff on disc, and I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to do this thing where I rent a game from y'all.
Yeah.
I can go in there and switch it. I'm getting, you know, I've got all my discs still. I'm going to play them. And they're all the games I like anyway. I haven't ever played all of them. I haven't played Black, which is, you know, like a great game, a shoot 'em up, you know, spy based one.
Yeah. I remember that one.
Yeah. There's several. I would love to play Blood again, but it's like a DOS game. I actually need to get it loaded to something.
You could look into emulators, maybe.
I know, and I'm so terrible at emulators. I've got to get my computer set up over here right now. I'm just mobile the whole way. Like I've got my iPad and my iPhone. Usually I run Linux. Linux is, everybody else is able to run Wine, or they're able to run the emulators, and they do great with it. I don't know why it is with me. I'm not hitting the right buttons or something, and I find it hard to run a DOS emulator on Linux. And that's just my fault, and I'm sorry, and I apologize to all the nerds out there that know what they're doing. I have never been able to quite get it down. Some of them really open up for me and do great. New Vegas, for whatever reason, will not load for me in a DOS emulator. And the same thing with one of my other favorites, which is Descent, which is something, one that a lot of people don't ever talk about. Descent was a space-based game with some fairly simple graphics. I mean, it was back in the early 90s, but it was fantastic. Just a fantastic game. More or less a horizonless world, meaning you could spin 360 any direction and don't know which way is up. And loved that game. And I finally got it to run, I think it was last year, on my Linux box. And so I was really excited because I finally got to pull that down. So revisiting those old games on keyboard, I find it's easier to do keyboard than it is to do the numbers pads and things like that, or the handhelds. I don't know why. I think it's just because once I get it, and also I do a weird setup on mine. When it's like ASD, what is the one below it, X? I usually totally reconfigure all those and make my space bar my shooter, you know, and make it where I can go back and forth on one hand, and then do yaw and like the roll on my other side. So I love flying games and space games. So I always have it separated out. But it's fun to be able to remember that. And at the same time, when you put me in front of a controller with, let's say, a game that's not Bethesda, or like when I was doing Dark Souls, it took me at least 10 to 15 minutes just to get my brain out of lock on how I played with Bethesda games on a PS3 controller. I don't know. And that is probably the most frustrating thing I've done, that made me realize how old I am. That it took me 10 minutes just to reset my brain so I could switch controllers.
Well, good news is pretty much PlayStation built, I would say, the pinnacle of controller layouts for the PlayStation 1 layout, because they've always kept at least like 90% of the exact same controller layout since. And most other games companies or producers have copied that layout pretty closely, including Xbox, which is a competitor. Theirs is a much more bulky sort of frame, but the layout is basically the same. The only one I think that really goes away from that is probably Nintendo, with their last handful of consoles sort of challenging that notion, but they've been very experimental lately, short of their experiments with pricing. It's pretty ridiculous, $80, especially since like the way games are priced is they're pretty much priced equally across the board, across the planet.
Yeah.
So an $80 copy of a game here is going to be the same as in Uganda or something, where like $80. Like look at Colombia. You can't afford games in Colombia because I think they make $300 a month.
Yeah.
And they make like on average wage is like $10 a day.
Well,
So
they're cutting out, and this is the thing, they're cutting out a market. And I know we all whine and harp on it, but the truth is they're doing it wrong. Gaming, you're supposed to be able to, yes, you want a fair price for what your developers are doing. We've had some fantastic games come out with 1 or 2 developers max. Stardew Valley is one that put it together, and pretty much it was all on Concerned Ape who made it. Still made a little banger of a game, and he's able to actually. I pay a one fee. It's not subscription, nothing else. That was one of the main reasons I started playing it. I started playing Minecraft back in 2008, 2009, when Notch was still involved. Once again, a development that was done primarily from one developer. And he made a banger of a game, and I was able to pay $9 for the whole thing, and I could keep all those locals on my iPad. I just played it. Now it's subscription. Now, if the internet's not working, I can't play it. I still play Minecraft, mainly to disengage my brain. It's something simple to do. That I go out and play that just single player mode when I'm trying to write a scene or do something. I just start taking off in the wilderness and try not to let the creepers blow me up. And it sort of disengages your brain like you would if you were driving. But it's not the same because I'm having to save everything online. It's there. I don't like the fact that they have made it to where gaming is now about subscriptions, about having the best internet connection that you can have, about how many hours you can play. Sometimes I hate that. Well, I think it's the gotcha games where you have to you can only play for X amount of hours and then it shuts itself off. No, forget you, bro. If I want to play till 3 a.m., I'm going to play till freaking 3 a.m. So I've almost gone back to the older games as a way to just say, I'm not going to do this anymore. And actually playing Zork. I've never played Zork throughout the whole thing. And I love Zork enough that I actually have a character named after Zork in my book. Zork, and he is his girlfriend, whose name is Amiga. And so if you get that, then I'm so proud of you. And if not, then I'm just so freaking old. But anyhow, so with Zork, I love playing games like Zork because it relies, it's out there. I can literally play this game for hours and I still don't get it all right. And when you force people to play online and they have to play on your platform and they have to pay so much money and you can only play on for so long, or they have to be connected to the internet, or they have to be connected to Wi-Fi, or there's a subscription and you can only play this part if you pay extra money. It just takes the joy out of it. And there's in no way do I want to have a game where I can't go up and play it, where they take it away from me. I've been really blessed that I've got the games that I've got on disc. Even then, PS3, when they stopped doing some of the updates on the DLCs and even just wiped them off, it took away a lot of the DLCs. I'm really fortunate that I've got my Fallout DLCs, and I haven't finished Dead Money. I haven't finished several of those. And I'm like, you know what? I've still got games that I could play. I've just got to get a PS3 again. And I know there's ones out there that I would love to Pizza Tower, I think, is one that I'd like to try. There's been a couple that came out just recently that people have been really excited about. And I'm like, you know what? I might want to check it out. And I'm thinking, is it worth it for me to go get a whole new console? Is it worth it for me to go ahead and get this whole new platform, to spend hundreds of dollars, to have to be eternally hooked up to the Wi-Fi, only to have them yank the game out from under me if they don't like what I said on a platform somewhere? And I'm just not sure. And then we have the whole thing with Collective Shout. And I'm okay. Yeah, I'm a person. I have rallied against pornography. I'm talking about here OnlyFans and child abuse and child exploitation. And a lot of our human traffic victims and the women that I've worked with in my addiction recovery were there not by choice. They were there because they were trafficked. And so I'm a big person. I'm a big believer in not trafficking humans, not exploiting them. But the games they're going after, so many of them have nothing to do with human exploitation. It's just another way to shut down people. It's just another way to shut down games they don't like because somebody looks a certain way. And I'm not a fan of that particular model because I believe that it's being unfairly represented as some sort of conservative or a Christian movement when it's the furthest thing from it. They're just there to shut down gamers. And I'm not going to be a part of that.
It's a power
if they want to shut something down, why aren't they shutting down OnlyFans? Why aren't they going after them and denying payments for them? They're not.
And why did they defend cuties?
Yes. Yeah, go after that. Do it.
It's we had this conversation the other day where it's like video games compared to most other forms of media are kind of the most susceptible to I guess what you'd call obsolescence,
Hmm.
because that's a lot what they're trying to do is make games obsolete, so that way you can only buy the newer ones. Because you can think about it, you got your physical games, you still need to go out and buy an obsolete piece of hardware to play
Yeah.
them first. It's like you think about movies. Movies are still being released on DVD from like 20 years ago,
Yeah.
but you're not going to find brand new Wii games to play on your Wii because they decided to force obsolete it, and then now you got to buy the brand new Wii thing, the new Nintendo thing, if you want to play the brand new Mario, because it's not going to come out for that other thing, because they just
Yeah.
decided one day, nah, no more, not now. So that's why I've been embracing emulators a lot,
Yeah.
just because you can have all your games, one device, and you're dealing with this really a lot of scummy companies. Um,
Hmm.
so it's sort of like a mixed thing, you want to save the game, you want to bring back physical copies, but then physical copies also equate the outdated technology you can no longer purchase. So I believe emulators are the way forward to save games, because you also have games that are exclusives that only come out for certain consoles, and that's it. I was looking at the PlayStation Portable, and they have like at least two, maybe three Monster Hunter games that are just exclusively on there. You're not going to find anywhere else except for on PlayStation Portable, which you haven't been able to buy one of those in the store for over 20 years now. So there's that.
No, 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 and that's you're right about this. Code is forever. In reality, you
Yeah.
should download the code and it should be able to be opened up on any operating system. And through the emulators, you can. And that's the whole point of many of the emulators. Now, I don't know what y'all are using right now. I've just always opened it up, and usually Good Old Games and a couple of other companies will have them out there. I've tried to run Discworld 100 times. I can't ever get it to open up. But are you guys using that, or are you using a Steam game, or what are you using?
For emulators specifically,
Hmm.
well, there's a handful of them out there that I think are pretty open sourced. It depends, because um, it depends what console you're trying to emulate. Like there's one I believe it's called Dolphin, that's made primarily for GameCube and Wii, and
Yeah.
then you have other ones. There's Aether SX2, which is strictly PlayStation. Then there's one that's like PPSS, which is PlayStation Portable, and just all these wacky names. But there's dozens of them out there for the different types of consoles you want to play. And if you have physical copies, you can burn those on a computer and start running some emulators, which are physical copies.
Yeah,
So
I
there's
use
a
Go ahead.
I use the Nintendo. I've been a Nintendo guy my whole life.
yeah.
And it's sadly, this is a sad time to be a Nintendo fan. I have no intentions of buying a Switch 2 anytime soon. And even though they're the only ones that have Metroid, the next Metroid coming out will be on the Switch 1 as well. But after that, it's probably all going to be Switch 2, and it's like, well, then I can't play because
Okay.
I just
Dude, go ahead.
they're the game company I love the most, and right now I also hate them the most. It's it's kind of
Mhm.
not a good time to be a Nintendo fan, but I do have Steam.
Yeah, I love Steam, and that's one of the main reasons. I know it's actually I need to have my big computer back because y'all know I'm losing my eyesight, so I have this huge display, which naturally is like a 10-year-old product. It's like massive. It's got like I'm using I think it's HP like 600 from like 2013 or something ridiculous because I always want to keep I like to know that I don't have a back door on the thing. Not because there's anything on there that nobody should see, but just because I don't want somebody else getting in it. So I run the oldest dang thing I can find and I put Linux on it and I'm like, ha ha, y'all get wrecked. And then I make sure I have locked up. But it's over at the other house. So this thing is so massive, I have to have a place to actually put it. And so I know that I say that I use it for my writing, and I do. I've used it for 9 books. But then the other thing that I mainly use it for is to play games. So I can make it big enough that I can see. And so that's been one of the biggest things for me as challenges is to, first of all, to find an emulator that works, because I really want to play Wild Wasteland, which is where you take Fallout 3 and then you combo it through. You can actually play it all the way through from Fallout 3 at the beginning, all the way through New Vegas, straight through with Sharon and everybody else that's from original Fallout 3. And so you can take them with you, and it's a Nexus thing. And I don't even know if they even have it right now because I've never been able to get it up and running. But I swear to you that if I get my Linux box over here, I'm going to try to load that thing. So, and I believe right now that's only for Windows, but it's on Steam. And I if I got both of those games, Fallout 3 and New Vegas, and put the Nexus module on it, I could probably play that through. And I would seriously consider doing a live streaming series of just playing Fallout, just 3 through New Vegas with the Nexus mod. And I keep thinking that would be so much fun, but I have to get my setup put in here. And there's so many things that I'm so far behind on because I decided to build this house with my own 2 hands. Well, my husband's 2 hands, because mine are tiny and I don't want to swing that hammer all the time. And so so when I say me, I may actually mean we. I actually mean him. And so he, and we're building it like cash up. So, and probably in the next year, maybe I'll be able to get it done. And that's after I finish my series and my audiobooks. But at least it'll give me something to do, because gaming is fun. Gaming is so much fun.
Milkmaster Fresh says, "Oh yeah, I used Dolphin to play Gauntlet: Dark Legacy."
Dude,
now, is that the same Gauntlet series that I used to play in the arcade, simply called Gauntlet? It was a top-down view, and you could play a few players at a time running through a maze.
Yeah,
Dude,
that's Gauntlet.
That is awesome. Gauntlet, Joust, Galaga I was the Galaga queen.
Yeah,
I love Galaga. Anything like that. Guardian Legend was a Nintendo product. And if you haven't played Guardian Legend, it is very obscure, but it is a fantastic. Not really it's kind of a hybrid between side scroller and top down. It actually scrolls upward, vertical scroll, but you can do it as a side scroll.
Some people almost classify it as a different perspective Metroidvania.
Yes,
it's not quite, but it is kind of leaning that direction.
Yeah, and a very challenging gameplay. It's fresh each time I played it. Loved that game, and I think that actually, I believe it or not, I have never played Metroid. I have failed you as a human being. I have failed you as queen of whatever it is that y'all want me to be, because I have not played Metroid, and I have never, like I said, I've never finished Dark Souls. And those two things.
That's okay. I skipped the N64.
Did you really?
Yeah, well, I buy it when Nintendo comes out with a new console. I don't buy it until they come out with a new Metroid. Then I go buy it.
The
N64 didn't have a Metroid.
Really? No, that's kind of like me. It's not because I'm used to. I'm not. I know what I like. I know everybody loves Metroid. I haven't played it. I know it's going to be fresh for me. I know that Mega Man, that series, Mega Man 2 especially, has sort of that same feel as Metroid. It's from that same genre, that same era. And of course, there's things that are different about them. And actually, Mega Man has more in common with Sonic than he does with many of the earlier games. A lot of what you see in Sonic is sort of a direct homage to Mega Man. With Dr. Wily and all these people, you have these different, people that you're supposed to meet. Well, you have your big boss there too. And I found them to be really, really sort of one of the same cloth. And in fact, it wasn't that hard for me to switch over to Sonic. And I mean, we did have a Sega system. And so I played Sonic for quite a while. And it had this, so for whatever reason, that set of games, that class of games were the hybrid side scrollers. I love first person shooters. I really do. I'm a huge fan of it.
Believe it or not, I can't do them.
Really?
I cannot get used to that twin analog stick control. I am still stuck in side scrolling purgatory, I guess. I mean,
Really?
I go back, I play games like I would love to see. I wonder if there's if Switch Online has like Bionic Commando on there or something like that. They got Strider on the Genesis, and those kind of games, those side scroller games, or even the belt scrollers like Double Dragon.
Yeah.
Those I like, but the 3D games, I just could never get into them.
Really, dude.
Really.
For some reason, I don't know why it was easy for me to switch back and forth and not have an issue with it. I think maybe it was because of the time I was doing it. So when 3D games really first start to come out, okay, that's early 90s, right?
Yep.
I'm already over 30 in the early 90s. My brain is already set. So I'd been playing pretty much, we had the flat, what I call flat screen, which is Pac-Man, Pong, that set. Then you had Meteoroid tanks, which is sort of early third person shooter, first person shooter. But you have most of it was side scrollers. So I guess it's because of the time in which I learned how to play those games, I was able to make the switch to 3D first person shooters, especially with Doom was the big breakout for me. We had other stuff, but that was the first one I really played extensively. Like as in sitting there like all night long, staying up because I wanted to, beat it. And so that one for me was the one that sort of got me into that mindset. And I've always been able to switch back and forth. But you're right about this. It's like I said about having the controller like set up for a Bethesda game on the PS3, where I stay in that pattern. It's the pattern of how I do my combos that actually hits me, not really how I see the world. It's the pattern that I'm using to enter it. And so if I can switch between controllers, I can switch between keyboard and controller. But when you're talking about the setup of each one, for instance, I always invert Y-axis. I don't know why. It's kind of like how you do a joystick on an actual airplane. If you push forward, it's nose down, pull back, it's nose up.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's something deeply ingrained for me that I have to have inverted Y-axis in order for me to actually play. And which is really cool because then when you pass the controller like to your kids and they're playing with you, they just crash and burn immediately because it's back, and they hate you for days. But yeah, I think that I guess I was lucky because at the time, even though I was older, I was able to make the switch more effectively. But I think you're right about this. There's a different center of the brain that you play with a side scroller. A side scroller, you're watching the story and it's someone else. It's like watching a movie. It unfolds before you. With a first person shooter, let's say, even if it's something as simple as Doom or it's something as complex as Elder Scrolls, when you're entering a Red Dead Redemption or something, you're looking through the eyes of the character. You are living it. It's less like a movie because there's not an outcome that's taking place. You're not taking them in just one direction and it's not directed as much. It's exploration. And so there's not one direction to go in. And I think you actually have to have a different mindset to play the first person shooter. There's it's like the difference between third person storytelling and first person storytelling.
Yeah, but there is also a matter of the controls themselves. For example, going back to Metroid again, the Prime series, which is three-dimensional first person, it has its own unique control scheme, and I can handle that.
Uh-huh.
The remaster has the option on there for the standard dual analog controls, and I tried it, and I was just like walking off cliffs or standing in the corner, spinning in circles, going, "What's going on?" And I couldn't do it, so I went back to the GameCube style control, and no problem.
Really?
Yeah, I'm actually hoping that the Metroid Prime 4 that's coming out soon, I'm really hoping that it has a GameCube control scheme on there. Because if it's straight up dual analog sticks, I'm cooked. I'm not going to be able to get through it.
Okay, so tell me, this is me being old. I've never played GameCube. What is the difference between that and the PS3 controller?
It's not the controller, it's the control scheme. For example, the left stick, when I go left and right, I turn. I push up, I go forward.
Okay, it's almost like the D-pad on Minecraft.
But if it was Call of Duty, I guess it makes me strafe. back and forth. And if I want to turn, I have to use the other stick. And it's like everything seems rearranged and discombobulated, and I just can't quite grasp it. And I sat and I tried and like got to a point where I could mostly run in a straight line, but
Well, okay, so it's the schematic. Okay, so let's talk about your brain when you're playing something like that. I we forget that our brain is actually responds to our hands. We always think of the brain controls the hands and the hands do what we want it to do. But the brain is taking in information also. And it's
right.
actually very kinetic when you are holding something in your hands or when you're writing or doing anything else. Your brain is taking in that information. And so you're actually switching to a different point of view. You're switching to a different way of doing things. And those controls, when they change up, it can actually sort of glitch your brain out. I've done this to myself before, and I've had other people do it too. My family were kind of ambidextrous. My son's completely strong left-handed. I'm ambidextrous. My daughter's ambidextrous. We can write with both hands. So if let's say that I write with my left hand for a little while, and especially if I'm writing in mirror, I can write mirror image and I can write mirror image upside down. Actually, I can also read upside down and backwards. So if I'm reading through a piece of paper upside down, I can actually read the words. But once I start doing that, my brain sets on that pattern and it glitches. And suddenly I can't put it back. This is why they thought I was dyslexic when I was a child, because I would switch modes and I would stay. Suddenly, instead of going from right to left, I would go left to right, or right to left, left to right. I would switch them, and I would get stuck, and my brain would see it in mirror image. And so the same thing happens when I'm playing. If I'm trying to switch the way I'm doing something, especially if the dominant hand changes, because I'm doing a particular. Usually, you have one thing you're doing with your left, one thing you're doing with your right. You'll be, like I said, it'll be a particular set of motions that you do only with your left hand, a particular set of motions that you do only with your right. So in your case, when you're doing the GameCube, you're set in that point. Probably I would say if you actually did a neutral activity for about 10 to 15 minutes, it would probably click in. But you would have to be doing something where you're not doing a challenge, where it's not like the tutorial level. It's just doing kind of like when you first start off with Elder Scrolls, where usually it's open world, and once you get away from the big baddie, you can just sort of go run. If you literally did nothing but that for like the first 10 to 15 minutes, maybe put on some music in the background, you'd find your brain would actually reset. And it's just
so you're probably clicked into something that would be a subcategory of fight or flight.
Yeah.
So you're kind of in mission mode, so you stay locked in there.
Yeah. So
until you come out of that, you can't switch back over.
Yeah. And so you have to actually just make it to where it's just nothing but the exploration, the actual intake of information rather than pushing it out. When you're busy doing mission mode with any kind of game, you're pushing out information. You're telling yourself, I'm going to go here. My hands are making this particular action take place. You're encoding. Basically, it's the same thing as when you're writing a word. It's coming out of your hands. You're actually encoding information. Decoding is taking it in. So when you're decoding, you're trying to get the brain set, and you're letting it come in through the flow of information in your hands, because you're making this motion happen, but you're just looking at that horizon opening before you. You're not worried about somebody shooting at you or something else. You're letting the information come in. And so you're actually allowing your brain just to reset, but you have to be in a sort of a neutral area, because as soon as you start thinking about, I need to do this thing, you start pushing motions through your hands. Now you're encoding again, instead of just taking it in and decoding what's happening.
I just wanted to play a game.
Too bad. This is actually, bro, it is absolutely brain science. My dad's experience with it, this is in the early 90s. My dad had a massive transhuman heart, little tiny attacks. And it was transient ischemias, is what they were called, and intermittent. They were just very tiny little dots, but they were all over his brain. He actually was out driving and suddenly he lost 10 minutes. He didn't know where he was on the road and realized he was 10 minutes down the road. He's smart enough that he knew he had had a stroke. So he stopped and waited, came immediately home and told my mother. And sure enough, he'd had a massive stroke, actually. Forgot. He kept all of his passwords in his head. He was able to do square roots to like the cubing in his head. He was a brilliant engineer and worked with the space program. You've heard me talk about him.
Yeah.
And then he forgot all of his passwords. He had to crack his own programs. He had use of his hands, but he could not remember things, and he had to learn to partially to speak again. Gaming helped him because it did the hand-eye coordination and forced him to relearn combinations, especially the passwords to get in and out of games, cheat codes, and things like that. He had to remember all of them, keep them memorized, write them down. And because of that encoding and decoding and how physical it was, because the hands are involved more than just reading or just speaking, the hands are actually involved. And him going through Super Mario Brothers and watching him so triumphant at the very end to finally make that last leap when he was always trying to jump over the flagpole, always trying to jump over the flagpole. And he could never get all the way to the top. And he came down off of that thing. He raised his hands in the air and he was so ecstatic. This man reprogrammed his brain thanks to gaming, because there's an entirely different setup with it. That ability to reprogram your brain for good or for ill exists through gaming. It is a neuroscientific journey. And I think that if we embrace that as a way to explore healing from brain trauma, I certainly believe that it's possible, and I know they have done it. And in fact, what Elon Musk is doing with his neuro pointers that he uses, which are just done by brainwaves, is something akin to that. And I do believe that anybody who's been on a journey through brain injury will find that games could actually help, because it forces you to use the whole body, the hands, the eyes, the coordination between the two, and then opening up those areas of the brain where you're going to be doing something with all three of those combinations really does help us reset our minds and possibly find new neural pathways that may have been closed to us by stroke or injury.
I wonder how close the parts of the brain we use when playing a game are to, say, playing an instrument, because I think of like the hand-eye coordination with a piano and that sort of thing. So I wonder if there's similar, if at all the same. I don't know. It's just a random thought that popped into my head. But I wonder if how much of the same part of the brain we're using to do that or play a musical instrument.
I'm going to off the bat, they're very close. You have cross cortex information flowing when you use both hands and you're playing an instrument. Different than vocalizing. Vocalizing is using actually part of the speech centers of the brain, the limbic centers, because you're combining emotion and usually words to create pitch. And there's a different area of the brain that's involved. But when you're playing an instrument, especially piano, which I play piano, and I've been playing since I was a child, it definitely kicks into a different center of the brain. I actually play by ear. I cannot play music very well. I actually play by ear, and I can hear something. I can play it back to you, but I can't usually look at a piece of paper and do it. In our nursing home ministries, the piano is one of the key pieces of therapy for so many of my older women, especially my older ladies that would be at churches. They couldn't remember their names or their children, or they might not speak at all. But if I sat them down in front of a piano, they would start to play, because it is kicking into a particular center of the brain that seemed to remain untouched, possibly due to the fact that it was cross-cortex involvement. I believe that the game that we're talking about gaming and doing games after brain injury. We use, like I said, both hands. We're encoding, we're decoding, but we're also involving the limbic system, because there are games that so profoundly affect us emotionally. And one of the big things in brain injury is your emotions and how you deal with those. A lot of people are much more uninhibited after a stroke. Frequently they have, trouble controlling emotion. A game actually helps you learn how to control your emotion in the face of sometimes very intense situations, especially with horror games or games where you have like a lot of shooting and violence. And in fact, they've used those veterans who have PTSD in some cases to help them work through certain trauma situations. And I think that we underestimate the good that games have done. I know it's easy to point to what the heck goes wrong with them sometimes, because I know when my son was young, he actually talked about how he would go to sleep at night. He said, I close my eyes and I can hear the tones. And he actually stopped playing for a while because it really bothered him that he could still hear it going on. Even after he closed his mind, he could still see it. But there are so many good things about games. that when they are presented in that positive, fun, entertaining light, uh, and when they give us the challenges that we need, not only to exercise portions of the brain, but exercise ethical dilemmas in a safe manner. I think that we've underestimated how much good gaming has done in our society. And I think that we need to actually talk more about the positive aspects of it and what it could be done to help other people.
All right. When us Gen Xers end up old, decrepit, and in the homes, for the therapy room, we want arcade cabinets, pool tables, and packs of Marlboros.
Yeah, they're gonna give you those Marlboros, bro. I don't know about. There you go. Light them up.
Well, we grew up in the 80s, so that will stimulate our brains.
That is true. Dude, somebody was talking about that on the. Okay. Did y'all grow up where the seniors were allowed to smoke?
Yeah, I guess you could say so.
Yeah, people were
I
like,
used to walk through the mall smoking a cigarette, and it was the trash cans all had ashtrays built into the lids. We could smoke in restaurants. We could smoke. I smoked in grocery stores. Then one day, there was no smoking in public buildings. Period. Just all of a sudden.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a terrible thing that they stopped that part of it, because I used to literally, okay, so my parents both smoked, and of course they were, this is the 1960s, so like I'm born in 62, so I'm early. So we're riding in my mom's sweet Chevy 66 Chevy, Super Sport with three engines. Oh yeah, I know. And then the bucket seats in it. My parents are up front laughing, listening to AM radio, and they are lighting packs. I mean, they are lighting 4-pack a day each Marlboros. And we would go cross 4 packs a day. Wow. These suckers don't slow down on their burn. They just keep burning. You had to stub them out to make them stop. So they're up there and they're rolling across the country. I mean, I'm back there just literally dying. Even then, I remember thinking, I think I'm going to die from this. And literally, smoker's lung. I would blow my nose. It would come out black. Your ears would be like clogged by the end of the day because there was so much smoke in the air. So yeah, it got a little rough now and again. But I was in high school, and the cool part was that you could go out in usually there'd be a courtyard inside the school. You'd have like a courtyard, and there'd be a little garden in there, and that's where the seniors would go and smoke with the teachers. Literally, just light one up. If you're,
I still think of college in these terms. When Kevin Bacon said, I think it was Kevin Bacon, one of his movies, when he said, "Why am I going to go to college? College is just high school with ashtrays."
See, and that's where you're dead wrong, because my high school had ashtrays.
For the teachers' lounge, but
no, the kids, they had it out there in the middle. And in fact, one of the biggest culture shocks I had actually was when I moved to East Texas. I was from Texas, but we moved all over the country, so I was like a Texas expat. My mom and dad are from Texas. Everybody's born in Texas. Then we would go, and he would have a government job somewhere, but we always sounded like Texans. We'd always go back home to Texas. But we're from like Central Texas and North Texas. Daddy was from deep East Texas. He didn't tell me there was a thing called dip and snuff. Now, my grandma would actually dip snuff. She had a thing called three thistles, Scotch snuff. And she was born in like the 1800s. My people are old, okay? I'm born to old people. I'm an old person. I should have been born, if we had our generations right, I should have been born in like 1911 or something ridiculous. But instead, no, I'm serious. My generations are so far spread out. My great-grandfather fought in the Civil War. My great-grandfather fought in the Civil War, bro.
Yeah.
That's how old my people were when they finally had kids. So me, I'm over here, and I'm like, living in so my grandma, who's born in like 1898, is dipping snuff. And so I'm like, okay, so that's what old people do. Well, we move around the country. We come back, and I'm in my sophomore year. Sophomore year, I moved 3 times. We come to East Texas, and these old boys are dipping snuff. I mean, they're spitting everywhere. But that made me a believer in smoking more than anything else in the world. I have never seen so much spitting in my. Everybody had a ring on the backside of their pockets, Skull to the Northland, something like that. Everybody was dipping Skull. That was a big one. Some people would dip actual chaw, where you like get a big old handful of it and stuff it in there. They were doing this in school. You could do it in school and nobody'd stop you. And
they set my mind on that Jeff Foxworthy song he did. Copenhagen, you can see it in my smile.
Whatever, Copenhagen, you can see it in my smile. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, I know that song. I know that song. Do yourself a favor and try Copenhagen. Drives the pretty girls wild. Yep, that's it. I know that song. Yeah, between that and
Funny.
wrestling, I got a baptism by fire. But so dipping was a thing down here. But so yeah, the kids could do it at school. They could dip. They could smoke. They couldn't drink, but some of them did. Actually, yeah, somebody be coming down the hallway. They'd have like whiskey and Coke or something, and they put it in a Coke bottle and laugh. And you're like, dude, I'm surprised none of us were dead.
It'd probably be quicker and easier to point out the ones that don't drink.
Yeah, I was not the one that did it. I was probably the last one. I was voted most likely to be sacrificed as a virgin. And that seriously, that was actually in the
Funny.
they took the teachers made them take it out. It was actually they put it in there and made them take it out of the yearbook. It was funny though. It was true. It was funny, but no, I was that person. I was always trying to be straight up because I came from a family that had addiction in it, so I'm like trying to be good, trying not to get in trouble because I know what's going to happen to me. I'm going to end up, sitting by the side of the road. I'm going to be in a van down by the river, basically, is what would have happened to me.
Yeah, you've already seen the consequences of such actions.
Dude, I saw the and I'm not, this is me speaking up, y'all have heard me say this. I'm not any better than anybody in my family that ended up addicted to alcohol or drugs. I got blessed, and I just would always say no at the right time. Other people I've known, God bless them, they tried, they failed, some of them died. And I've had some that survived and lived and got past it. But yeah, the 80s sort of did that to you. That was literally like everybody was trying everything, everybody was doing everything, and then there's me over in the corner. That's me in the spotlight losing my religion. I'm over there. Yeah, I was like, I was the one. I didn't smoke. I didn't, sleep around. I didn't do any of that stuff, partly because I was too busy being a geek and I didn't have time for that business. I was too busy being me, but it was a crazy time. And so, yeah, when you talk about what they're going to have to put into the nursing homes for, let's say Gen X, which y'all are the next generation after, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not really a boomer because I'm not old enough to remember. I remember the summer of love in quotes. I remember a lot of stuff burning to the ground. I was like 6 years old in 1968, but that's not the same person as a person that's 18, 19 years old at Woodstock. So when they put all the boomers in that thing, they're sort of, it doesn't count. Now y'all are right behind. Now y'all I'm talking with Wrangler, y'all are right behind us. So you're kind of like, how old are you now, Wrangler?
50.
You're such a baby. Oh my gosh, get out of my house. Anyhow, so yeah, so you're in that 80s group, the 80s kids group, and you have a
I was lucky in that aspect.
Yeah, and so you're kind of got the best of both worlds. You get a chance to explore the first phase of computers and games and things like that. You're old enough to enjoy them, but they didn't rule your life. And
they kind of did. Mine specifically. In general, no. For me, yeah. Oh yeah, they had me hooked from the very beginning.
Really? When did you first?
Frogger, Asteroids. Oh man, I could not stop playing.
Oh yeah, but like, okay, so Asteroids, were you playing at home though, or were you playing at like the arcades?
Both.
Yeah, I said we didn't have it. There was the ones that are slightly older than you, like the ones of my husband. My husband's 55, so in his age group, they had to go somewhere to go play. You had to go to the arcade, or you had to go somewhere. Or your parents had to bring home a console, and you might be lucky if you had that.
Oh yeah, I remember before consoles were a thing.
Yeah.
Like my first console was the Atari 2600. It was the hot new console at the time.
Really?
And I'm like, and I couldn't wait to see the arcade stuff at home. And then I look at what's on the Atari. I'm like, I'm not getting that, but I can mess around with this Pitfall. I don't know what I'm doing.
That
was an aggravating game because I
still
don't understand what you were supposed to accomplish there.
I think it was just exploration. I just do it until it's kind of like QWOP. If you ever done was it QWOP, whatever, the one where you walk across, try to make your man walk and then run, and literally it's just walking mechanism. It's just so hard. It's kind of like Flappy Bird. It's just mechanism. It's just making certain things happen. Battletoads.
I knew how to run around. I didn't know what the objective was. I guess it's get so many points or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, when you're feeding quarters into something too, it kind of changes your perspective. You don't have time to learn all the lore. You sort of would just guess at it. And for the children listening in the audience, and we didn't have Google where you could go look up what the game synopsis was.
No, but
You had
did
no
get gaming magazines with all the cheat codes.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do that, or you could sort of guess at it. Like if you were at the arcade, you could sort of guess. And arcades were pretty cool, but you had to wait for that one guy to get off of that, the console. You just wait. And they wouldn't get off for me. I'm not one of the really super cute girls or anything like that. I'm just that nerd girl over there. And then they're not going to get off for me. They're just going to sit there and tell me, you wait, loser. And then it would start to close. And you're like, I only got 5 minutes before closing. And I had to get in there and put my quarter in. So when you finally take it to the home, two things happen with consoles coming to the home. First of all, you actually had time to explore the games.
Mm-hmm.
There was so much more to it than in Pac-Man. You're trying to get levels. You're trying to beat levels, and usually you'll get a little reward, something like that. So you beat so many levels, and then you get a reward and a little cutscene with one of the ghosts chasing Pac-Man or whatever. But you had to make a certain number of levels. Suddenly, the whole thing changes where you could now stay in there, start over. You weren't feeding quarters into it. Instead, you could actually start to learn the game, and that opens up the exploration for story games. And that was probably the biggest change. And then the other one being that the games could become more complex because you had people that weren't just spending 15 minutes at a time trying to play before mom leaves from the pizza parlor. They were literally trying to stand there and now you didn't have to stand up by the machine. You could sit down and you'd have a snack in front of you. You could stay there for 8 hours and literally not move. Just play the game. Just do it. Just that. Yeah. So now we have the more complex storylines. Ultima, Platoon actually was a great game. Early Nintendo. Legend of the Wizard by Broaderbone. A lot of those ones where they have these really complex storylines and lore and everything behind them, even in the side scrollers. That's where you start to get that chance to move away from it's an entertaining thing that you go out to play to it's at home. And now it becomes one of the primary ways, more than a movie, is me remembering a game that I played and how the endings occurred and how the characters did it. And I think that really actually affects us as storytellers too.
Yeah, I think the first video game I played through that had an actual storyline unfolding as you beat the levels was Ninja Gaiden.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I could never get far on Ninja Gaiden. There was always some guy that was playing it, and I never got it. And so I didn't have it on my console. Yeah. And I've never gotten to play it. Ninja Gaiden's one that
I guess the arcade version was something very different, but
it was different. I'm thinking that because I remember when it came out, and like everybody was just nuts for it. And nobody wanted to get off the machine, so I couldn't get to play it. So I'm going to have to go back and actually explore those, because when we're talking about history, having lived through it, there's gaps in my understanding. And that's one of the things is when we talk about those fighting games, whether you're talking about Ninja Gaiden or you're talking about, Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, all of that, that whole genre those are the ones I actually missed. The ones where it's just playing the story through and then getting to the cutscenes. And I think that that's something I would like to, if I could go back, I would play that genre of games. And then, of course, the Dark Soul trilogy and probably Metroid.
Some classics. Many of those games, you're talking about, man, I wasn't even born for half of this stuff. Most of this stuff.
Baby.
I didn't really get into gaming, like I'd say where it became a portion of my life, because probably till I was closer to my college years, to be honest. Well, high school, college, I had an original Xbox. I played that a lot because we lived at a ranch, so there wasn't much to do. And it would obviously get too hot, so we played Xbox. We had the original Xbox, I think was my first real console I got into. That was the introduction of like the games like Halo, Prince of Persia, a few others that were primarily like exclusive on that. But the era that stuck with me was mainly towards that college years, because that's when, like, well, let's say end of high school into college, 16 years old, PC gaming is what got me, mainly because online gaming was barely becoming a thing.
Mhm.
And thanks to this company called Nexon, they had I guess you could say online gaming was already a thing with a lot of subscription-based massive multiplayers. Um,
Text-based games were a big thing.
yeah, there was a lot of subscription-based online games, but it was really what sort of changed it a lot was a company called Nexon had a subscription-based online game. I forgot what it was called. I think it might have been Maple Story that was failing. So what they did was they got rid of the subscription. They added on for the first time ever, never before seen, a cash shop, an in-store cash shop, and they released the game for free.
Yeah.
And it made millions. It was the introduction of what was called free to play, and I was too poor to afford games, so I was stuck in this free to play genre, and they were all massive multiplayer online games, and that became my shtick. Was just these massive multiplayer online games with these massive worlds. You just kill things and level up for a bit, but then slowly we'd see I believe it was EA take the concept of
Mhm.
these in-game stores and stuff that were all found in free-to-play online games, and then they just start placing them inside regular games that were, they had that $60 price tag, and that was a big head scratcher for a lot of us who were playing these free online ones because it was like, that was sort of the contract. You
Yeah.
play the game for free, there's this inside store, in-game store you can purchase things from, but you don't necessarily have to.
Yeah, but
So
when they may not have invented the microtransaction, but boy,
yeah,
did they popularize it. EA there.
I would say it was already pretty popular because free to plays were exploding ridiculously. But what that you were mentioning is like, consoles come around and you play a game just all day and stuff. I think an introduction that online gaming brought that I don't think most people were seeing was the online communal aspect of
Yeah.
it that really took over. And the game that got me hooked in that aspect of online communal playing was a game that is pretty much dead now called Planet Side 2, which was did you hear about that one?
Yeah.
Arxo? Planet Side 2? Because that like pretty much 90% of people I talked to never heard of that game.
I've heard
But
of
it was an all online shooter where basically it's like a three-way fight for a gigantic map. And the map can hold upwards to 1,000 people.
Oh,
So
wow.
you'd have 8 or 9 fights happening all at once, and it's just people trying to conquer this gigantic map, and that's all it was. There was no time limit. There was no like countdown clock. There were no matches. They were just 3 really large maps people would go at 24/7 trying to conquer the entire thing. And that was the first time I realized I spent over 5 hours playing the game. I was like, oh dang, I've been fighting on this map for 3 in-game days now.
Yeah, when
It
you
was
real
easy to do without realizing once you get into a rhythm.
Yeah, but Snow is very much right. There's a lot of like great storytelling that you're only gonna find in games. Um and a lot of them we actually see sort of they're taken and turned into movie forms and they're really bastardized, but an aspect of them that's not explored too much is actually the novelization of video games, as well as full-blown sort of like I guess what we'd come to know as extended universe
yeah.
through novels of video game lore as well. Like a pretty good one is Halo.
Yeah.
They have dozens of books. I've only read like a handful that I thought were pretty darn good because it felt like Vietnam in space a lot of the time. But there's just so much literature out there that has been produced as like a companion piece for a game or something of the sort that I think this is probably like its own genre by now. I've only dipped into the Halo books, but there are some pretty decent writers out there. I guess maybe Alan Dean Foster, who produced some Alien books, maybe that might count because there's some that are sort of tie-ins to video games and the like.
Well, Eric Nyland is the one actually who wrote a lot of the Halo books. Did a
Yeah.
fantastic job with it. Halo is one that I didn't mention that I actually fell in love with Halo.
Uh-huh.
I got so a lot of stuff. Okay, so this is what you get for being old. So most of my gaming consoles I didn't buy. I get them
Yeah.
adult because my daughter got deployed to Iraq. So she'd get deployed, she'd go into the war zone. So mom, in order to support the war effort, I played her games. So I always got her consoles. So my introduction to Halo is a few years after the fact, like in 2006 or something like that. Absolutely fantastic franchise. It was the first person shooter I'd really played that was actually had that realism to it, that it felt like being immersed in the world. And I know you go back and look at it now and it seems choppy, but between that and Tomb Raider, as far as being actual, really immersive worlds, Halo did a fantastic job of that. The storyline was just so compelling, and Nyland's expansion of the world into this to the novels and some of the anthologies that they had as well were so perfect, and the lore still continues today. We still have that sort of that bleeds over into the Warhammer 40K community. A lot of those first early Space Marine and Halo soldier cultures go into the Warhammer and gaming communities there, and we start to see this tie-in with the TTRPGs where Dungeons and Dragons sort of gave birth to certainly some of the games that we see out there, and it came back and returned the favor by spawning these other vast, for lack of a better term, they're franchises, because they're not just novels, they're not just games, they're books, they're comics, they're online they're online communities. There's TV shows that would knock off of it, and they explode in such a manner. And of course, that's the accompanyization of the internet opening up at the same time that these games and these franchises show up. So I think that looking at that from that point, when we talk about novels and we think about, a lot of people used to think in terms of only, and we still have trad pub do this, only think in terms of, well, can this be turned into a novel? But if you come up with our generation, you're actually thinking to yourself, can it be made into a game? Would it be a great game? Would it be a great TTRPG? Would it be a great comic or a great graphic novel? All of these things came to mind for me when I was writing Watcher the Dam, because I think in those terms. I think about a game unfolding before me, or I think about a TTRPG with a quest, and and so beyond just movies, where Trad Pub just wants to go just over and over again. Can it be made into a movie? Can it be they want to know, can they make a series of movies out of it that they can get money from it? Can they do it the way they want to? Well, that's not what most of us are doing as indie publishers. Indie published books are from that generation. They're from the generation of people that grew up gaming and doing these franchises where it was so expansive that anything could be a part of it. And so we don't think in the same terms of, oh, we want to write a book that will become a movie. We think in terms of, this might be a great game, but I'm going to write a book. I'm actually going to novelize a game in my head. I'm the only one that's ever
That's
played.
exactly what I did.
Yeah, tell us about it, because I think this process is so fascinating. I think it's where Trad Pub is really missing the mark.
Did you want to tell us about that, Regular?
Yes.
Oh, you're looking at it. My books were originally going to be a video game, but I couldn't figure out how to build the game. So I was writing down the storyline and asked people for feedback, and they asked, when's the book coming out? I said, oh, no, that's not going to be a book. And eventually I realized I couldn't make the game, and I was like, well, I guess it's going to be a book.
Yay. And now it is.
Now we're here, and the talks of a game, possibly.
Oh, I would say mine can definitely be converted to a game, since it was a game first in my head before it was a novel.
Well, in fact, and well, we're talking here about influences. So, for a lot of people, the Elder Scrolls, they're the basis for their worlds, or for how they start off first dreaming up some of their storylines. A lot of times, that's why you see those races show up frequently in fantasy right now. And of course, it was fed from the Lord of the Rings and other earlier fantasy books. And also Dying Earth with Jack Vance is one of the ones that gives rise to the magical fantasy books that we see of that period as well, and some of the games that pop up out of them. So then we have the opposite of that. Well, there's Fallout, which is not really science fiction. It's apocalyptica. It does have some horror. It has some other things. I was playing that heavily. And actually, when I would go back when I was looking at scenes that I had in my head, the earliest ones, I would actually go back and just play on bullet sponge mode. I would get onto the Capitol grounds and just play like combat for hours at the highest level I could, and work through the shooting scenes. Like how do you? Because I love the game mechanics enough, and actually the game mechanics to me on Fallout 3 and New Vegas. New Vegas is a little harder, but they stand to the test of time. You can actually use them for gaming mechanics as far as shooting, rolling, doing things like that. And so I actually used them for some of the first scenes that I did when I wanted to sort of act it out. I would actually go find a place where it sort of had a certain setup, and I would work through the scene in my head while playing the game. Now the characters were totally different. The scenarios were totally different. Certainly the environment's different. I'm in Texas in the middle of a wasteland. But people running and shooting at stuff that's trying to kill them, sort of, a classic theme that, spans all the genres. But being able to see it in real life in front of me while I'm playing, and I think, okay, this is my character. My character's going to be doing this in the story, and I have the sidekick coming up behind him. Well, I'd have Sharon or somebody do that, and I would watch the game mechanics, and I would actually start to say, okay, this is how I can show this scene in my own book. This is how the rifle acts. This is how the mechanisms work. And when you have a really good story that actually shows the proper mechanics of rifles, shoot, or energy weapons in some cases, it's interesting because it does introduce that visual to you that it begins to affect how you see the world that you're writing about as well.
Yeah, I actually tried to build Haley in Smash Bros. You can make your own fighter in that game.
Oh yeah,
I tried to build her in there, and I kind of did, but it wasn't anything close to what I was thinking. But I wanted to do that I thought, if I play a character on here that looks like Haley, I might get some more ideas for what I want to do or whatever. But
yeah, well, it is. It's like almost like an early version of AI. You could go in and you could build a character. Mm-hmm. And I think it's one of the reasons that my characters look the way they do is because in Fallout and Elder Scrolls, you pretty much only have one kind of, you have the races, but they look exactly pretty much alike except for the faces each time. Yeah. And so something so different that I never could build it on the engines. They wouldn't let me make my characters on because my characters are really short or they're really broad. They were, very different looking. They're mutated. And so I really wasn't able to, out of that frustration, that's how I end up drawing mine so I can visualize it. So I end up illustrating because we were using the games almost like an early form of AI to visualize characters that we normally would have drawn back at an earlier age. And instead we would put them on the gaming platform and actually play those characters. And
it's almost like you're psyching yourself up by giving your own self a proof of concept.
Yeah. And now, of course, a lot of people are using AI instead to create that proof of concept. But in this case, you're actually playing it as a character in a game.
That's more fun.
Oh, yeah, because you actually have a story to go with it. And of course, the thing is, how do you stop yourself from being derivative of a game? And we do see this. I mean, this is going to be honest here. It's really easy to see some of these places where somebody has written from a game perspective, where they're actually writing a fanfic more or less for the game that they played. When it's done well, it's entertaining and a lot of fun, even if it's the influence. When it's too derivative, it has a tendency to stifle creativity because they become so invested in the game they played that they write the original an original thought. So it's important, just like when we talk about with AI, it can stifle creativity too if you're so used to playing this one storyline. If I was happy with Fallout 3 and New Vegas as a story, I had nothing else to say about it, I would have never written Watcher the Damned. Because Watcher the Damned is not Fallout, it's not Elder Scrolls, it's its own world. Yeah. And if I had been content just to explore those fandoms and those games, I would have never explored my own universe within my head. And so I think there's a danger there, like it is with AI. When you become too invested in a particular franchise as a creative, you can become stuck. Now, not everybody is a creative, and I want to say this out loud. Everybody has a creative streak, and we want to encourage that. But some people are readers. We have readers that are not authors, they're not artists, they're not anything else. They are readers. They want a world to immerse themselves in. That's okay, because that's what we do. We have a world we want to offer them. We want to give them that world. And when you find out that somebody's actually immersed themselves in your world, it is such a trip. It is so thrilling to hear that somebody loves your world as much as I loved playing Fallout or playing Elder Scrolls or Halo. It's exciting, and
Makes all the
sometimes
effort worth it right there.
because there is a hunger for that sort of thing. And people who read novels are actually using their brains as their own gaming system. They're creating the character within it. They're actually making this character do something, but now it's a guided journey. It's one that they're actually able to go along with it, and the novel is still alive and well. People obviously are reading, because you and I, and James, we have readers. We have people we wrote, and so there's a.
Did I lose connection?
Yeah, there's a fine line between us being fans of a particular franchise but never breaking free. We wouldn't have made our own things, but at the same time being thrilled that there are people who love franchises, who love stories so much that they become so immersed in it that they don't want to break free. And so, I don't want to ever person feel bad, because the truth is that is how we find the things we love, is we read about it somewhere. We have a story that's presented to us that we go, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. I never saw that. And as a creative, when you have that spark of genius suddenly show up in front of you, and you go, oh my gosh, I love this thing so much. I would love to create a world of my own. It's thrilling. But it's even more thrilling when you find out that somebody loves your world so much that they want to dive in.
Wrangler, question. What was it like for you the first time someone approached you talking about your world?
I did what I usually do. I stammered awkwardly. It's weird. I could sit here and go on and on about these other franchises I love, but then when I go to talk about mine, which I'm really invested in, I suddenly I kind of go blank, and I'm not even sure what to say. And I don't know why. I should be able to talk about that one better than the rest, but for some reason, I always seem to blank up when it's my own.
Okay, then, right now, unblank. Tell me about it.
Well, it starts off with Haley, 10 years old, and invaders from outside their reality take over the town, and she escapes because all the other townsfolk are kidnapped, and then she ends up going on a big adventure. The other day, I said it's like Goonies with fantasy aspects and some sci-fi. And so she and Elizabeth end up going on a big adventure, learning more things, making mistakes, learning from that, doing better, and kind of they got to. I'm not sure how to keep going without. Well, obviously they win at the end. You're going to expect that, so I guess I don't call that a spoiler, but. But I kept it very clean, and the foul language characters always got interrupted when they went to cuss, because I wanted it to be accessible for everybody. I've had folks in their 70s who liked it. I had folks who were 11 years old when they read it and liked it, and different ages in between. Of course, there are a few that read it and it just wasn't their cup of tea. You're not going to appeal to everybody. But for the most part, those who liked it didn't have many complaints, and those who didn't just didn't finish. But I only know of two who went to read it and was like, nah, this ain't for me.
Wow. No, that's a huge deal because
Nice.
for everyone. I've had dear friends that I love. They were like, it was okay. It's just it's not for me. It's and to be able to say that, I know James, you've been through the same thing. Our books, they have a readership. They actually have, or your stories in your case, they have people who love them because of they stay true to themselves. They actually are they are their own little genre, their own little world. Tell me about your world,
Are you
Who?
talking to James or me?
James.
Um. Tell you about my world. That's actually a very, very large question. But one thing that I constantly refine in World Without End is almost like what I'd call a elevator pitch, sort of. I have one on my website. Brought it up before me, and I actually stole this from 40K because they always have like that opening segment where they have that paragraph that sort of
Yeah.
defines the world. So I kind of took it from that. So this is an older one I still need to fashion up, but it says World Without End is a new and fresh fantasy sci-fi world full of diverse landscapes and interesting, unique civilizations that strive to exist in a world of both ancient kingdoms and futuristic cities, technological wonders built decades ago, and mystical creations that live and breathe together in this ever evolving world of adventure and terror.
Ooh,
That's a pretty good elevator pitch.
that is.
I need to come up with one of those one of these days.
Easy tightened up a little bit at the beginning, but yeah, like that was kind of like how I started. I wrote that down, refreshed it, tightened it up over time. And I also read it every now and then to sort of just kind of like get
Mhm.
that spark going in myself. That's another aspect we probably don't talk too much. Is like, for me, I consider myself blessed because I'm somebody who can almost at any moment, no matter what the mood, sit down and write and pull out the words I need to pull out for literature. And I know that's not true for everybody. But I surround myself by things like this. These paragraphs, sentences, statements involving World Without End that hit that, get that ignition in me going, as well as music. We're talking about AI. I got
Mhm.
60, 70 songs that are all lore based and World Without End that I just play the track while I
Yeah.
start writing. And not only that, but I got like playlists of albums that are meant just for a particular story I'm working on.
Oh wow.
Um, to get me in that
I
that
did
that
the same
mindset.
thing.
And it's not just and it's not just like write out lore words and get going. Sometimes it's just the mood. You get that particular instrumental genre going
Oh
in the
yeah.
background that suits your story. So there's a lot of that involved in it as well. But it all helps to continue the chronic chronicle of writing down the journey and all these different stories. But we're nearing the half hour mark, so let's go ahead and wrap it up with some final thoughts and where people can find you, Wrangler, our guest for this evening. What are some of
Woohoo.
your final thoughts and where can people find you?
You can find me on Amazon. I got 2 books up there: Haley Star Bad Kitty and Bad Kitty Haley's World.
Yeah.
Just type in Bad Kitty and Frequency Studios; it'll pop right up. Also, you can find me on Substack under Frequency Studios. I have a short story over there set in the same universe, so you can check that out. And you can also find me on my YouTube channel. Uh, do a channel search for @Wrangler212. It'll pop right up. If you just type search my channel name, you're going to get a whole bunch of Jeep things pop up. So,
Uh,
Yes.
Righteous.
what's nothing wrong with that? Jeeps are awesome. There's a reason I picked
Yeah.
this name.
Any final thoughts for anything we're talking about today? Anything you'd like to share?
Who, me?
Or a Wrangler, you did
Yeah,
share his final thoughts.
we're going, aren't you, bro?
I don't know. Video games are obviously a huge influence on me, maybe a little too much at times, but yeah, they do help inspire a lot of things and get a lot of thoughts flowing. And that was really cool to learn about our age, that they've been used for therapeutic reasons. I didn't know that was a thing. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're cool.
Excellent. All right, Snow. Final thoughts on where people can find you.
Final thoughts. Games are a storytelling uh, genre. They are a type of entertainment, just like any other type of entertainment, with its pluses and its minuses. But I think we need to embrace those strengths, especially as we're entering a new era in gaming, as things have become more subscription based and more about spending money. We need to celebrate those games that really gave it all, to us in the first place, with the stories we're writing. And to go ahead and be able to say, yes, I was influenced by these games just as much as
Uh-huh.
I say they're influenced by movies or music. And certainly the music part, I 100% on this. I know that what Wrangler's saying works for me. I go in and I have a playlist, and if I need to immerse myself immediately in a scene, I have a whole set of music that, whether it's classical, rap, or country, anything in between, that I will go to set the scene for me, and it actually helps me pick back up and get back into that world and get myself going. And you can read about my series, Watcher the Damned. The elites created the happening, resetting humanity with a gendercidal virus, and they got foobarred by their own global governance system. Now it's a cyberpunk Westworld world, and a dangerous prisoner leads humanity's revolution to destroy the system he helped create. And
Excellent.
Damned is found, of course, in Texas, where we have our intrepid Watcher leading his little band of revolutionaries against the global system. And you can find it at watcherofthedamned.com, where I have the links for Amazon, as well as for my own shop, where you can get it in its EPUB or PDF form. And you can also find it, of course, on Amazon as well, or at flow.page/RH Snow. That's flow.page/RH Snow.
All
And
right.
love to have you read it. And just thrilled to be on here as always. Love you guys out there in chat. Thank you so much for putting up with me while I try to get my water running. And I love you all. Mwah! And thank you, Wrangler, and thank you, James, for having us here. You're
Of
awesome.
course. And everybody, thank you for joining us today. If you're watching this in the replay, give us a like, leave a comment down below, share with your friends if you like what you hear here, and tune in next week, same bad time, same bad channel. We are headed out. Thank you so much for joining us